All right, what up, y'all? It's your man Sam Ant here at Viral Hip Hop News. Got a dope interview for you guys this evening in our Throwback May series. But before we get into it, let's get a quick word from our sponsor. Want a live interview with Viral Hip Hop News? Email me, Sam Ant, at dlsmediainc1@gmail.com. Let's go. If you're an artist, entrepreneur, want to promote your music or your brand here at Viral Hip Hop News, email me, dlsmediainc1@gmail.com, to get an interview with me, to share your story in front of a live audience. Can't wait to hear from you. Email me now. And if you want your brand promoted in the front of my videos, I have a great promotional offer going on right now. You see that below our ticker. Email me to find out how you could be a part of that. Awesome deal. Let's go to work. All right, so this past week, I don't know if you noticed, but Jess Hilarious on the Breakfast Club said something along the lines of she didn't know who comedian Damon Williams was. And she said it in a very dismissive, very disrespectful manner. Damon Williams being a iconic comedian out of Chicago, Illinois. He was on Comic View. He was on Def Comedy Jam. Definitely one of the pillars in comedy. Of course, we have our Mount Rushmores and we have our various people that we put in our top of comedian royalty. And then we have the ones who help build it, who are the foundation. And I like to think that Damon Williams is one of the people that are the foundation, hitting these streets, hitting these comedy clubs, providing nonstop laughs, providing exceptional, phenomenal material for decades upon decades on end, doing what he loves, doing it the right way, and keeping the craft pure and at its purest form. And he's one of those pillars and deserves to have his right and respect in the comedy game, especially from one of his comedic cohorts in Just Hilarious. Now, please don't misunderstand what I'm saying when I mean cohort, because if you look at the resumes, they don't even compare, right? They don't even compare. But that being said, a lot of conversation about Damon Williams as of the last week or so. And I wanted to pay some homage because we had the opportunity and the privilege to interview Damon Williams back in 2020, 2021. We damn sure knew who Damon Williams was and damn sure made sure we gave him his flowers. And we had a phenomenal interview. Put out brief clips and snippets of this interview, but you've never seen it in its entirety. An interview with Damon Williams back from 2021 in our Throwback May series. Enjoy. Leave a comment. Show some love for your bro. And let me know what you think. And if you enjoy it, please share the video. Without further ado, listen to our interview, the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast with Chicago OG, Damon Williams. Enjoy.
You're tuned into a very special episode of the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. I'm your brother, Old Guy from Hip Hop News Uncensored. Sitting across me is my co-host.
What up, y'all? It's your man, Sam Ant, Viral Hip Hop News. You're in the building for a special edition of the Hip Hop Uncensored podcast. Like my cuz said, we got a special guest in the building, the comic OG, Damon Williams is in the building. Mr. Williams, how you doing today, family?
Doing great, man. It's so funny because I just told my wife that I've become the OG, and now y'all introduced me as the OG.
You damn sure.
Let me tell y'all, it sneak up on you. You're gonna be an OG before you know it out there. So yeah.
You already are.
Yeah, I feel like it already. Shit.
Right.
You damn sure OG in the comic game, and we've been watching you on Comic View. I think you were on what other one were you on? Jamie Foxx's comedy show, if I'm not mistaken.
Man, all the black comedy shows.
Every last one of them.
Yeah, all the black ones. So, and 2 white ones.
How you feeling right now? Let's talk about just some social climate conversation real quick before we get into comedy, man. How you feeling watching everything from your television screen, from your phone, like everybody else? We got COVID-19 hitting us off in March, and then obviously we seen George Floyd get murdered, among other black and female individuals out here due to police brutality, man. So how are you feeling right now? What's your overall take on everything?
Man, I'm deeply entrenched into the whole moment that this time in history is, and the movement. My son is an activist, man. He's a leading activist here in Chicago, and so he keeps me definitely tapped in. But he also had a direct altercation with the CPD during a demonstration. So he and his sister have a organization called Let Us Breathe Collective, and they're police abolitionists and prison abolitionists. So this whole defund thing fell right into what they've been talking about for the last 4 or 5 years. So I'm all the way in it. Now, as far as the COVID, that's a whole other, dastardly situation that we're going through, especially for this industry, because we couldn't do live stand-up. And being home and not being on the road, not being able to have a livelihood, not be able to bring my craft to the people. That's also been very touching. But luckily, I have a wonderful spouse and a comfortable surrounding. So at least I'm hanging in there because, to be honest, unemployment kicked in. Let's just keep it real.
Another thing that's been on the news is Nick Cannon and others that have been getting a lot of backlash from what they said. But what do you feel about that and the whole cancel culture? When somebody says something that's out of line that may offend people, you got a group of people who now want to take their job and cancel them. How do you feel about that aspect?
Well, no comment. I'm trying not to get canceled. No. Actually, man, it's, like Master P had a really profound statement about it. He said, we just need to own our own. Now, not to say that you should be able to be, negative to anybody else's culture or disrespectful or anti-Semitic. And I'm not saying that's what he was. I haven't really even heard Nick Cannon's statements. But if you don't have to cater to any other group in your own niche, then you can say what you want to say. So that's a choice you got to make economically and where you stand socially. If you want to be on a platform or if you want to be, in this capitalist society. So you got to make a choice. But I feel like Master P said, if we had our own platforms, then you don't have to really be so like the minister. They tried to, mute Minister Farrakhan, took him off of social media, still found a way to broadcast, and he don't have to answer nobody, so he can say exactly what's on his mind. And I think as a Black person, you should be able to do that in any person.
Absolutely. And I think that we're starting to take steps to move toward that direction. Little by little in 2020, you're starting to see ownership, not only in media and music and in the brick and mortars and in plumbing, anything when it comes to Black, you're starting to see more and more. And it's a beautiful thing. You're also a Chicago native, been out there for a long time doing your thing. Shout out to Chicago. Yeah. We see how rich it is in culture, but obviously through the mainstream media, it has a real negative connotation. Can you just walk us through the history of Chicago from when you were a young man growing up to where it is now?
Well, the way I grew up, man, in a community, in a neighborhood, and there were families. And so basically, we went from Woodlawn area to the Beverly area, which was the better area, but there were all families that migrated. And so we had community, and we had last names. Everybody knew about the Johnsons, the Dunbars, the McDowells, the Williams, the Fosters. And it was parents. It was 2-parent households, and they were blue collar workers, who moved up, and that was that migration. Now you don't really see that. We don't really know our neighbors, so it's not as communal. But it's not as bad as it's being portrayed in the media. The violence that's taking place in Chicago is really cliquish, and it's more personal confrontation. So it's not like you come to Chicago, you got to worry about getting shot on any corner. This guy's mad at that guy, or these guys did something to these guys' buddies, and now they're retaliating. So it's this vicious cycle of retaliation taking place. It's very unfortunate that there's no way that, we don't have organized gangs, if we're going to say that, because that's what it used to be, that could kind of stifle this, or something. If a kid got hit by mistake, or if somebody robbed the old lady coming out of bingo, it was people to check them for that. Now it's just these small cliques, and they wilding and they violent, and that's not just Chicago. That's all over America. Anywhere you got poverty and, lack of opportunity, you're going to have crime and violence. So Chicago, we just happen to be in the lead as far as the media is concerned. So that's my take on that right off the top.
Right. You've seen Terry Crews. I think he was on CNN maybe a couple of days ago last week, speaking on violence in Chicago and how we need to first fix Black on Black crime before we can deal with systematic racism. And he took a lot of heat for that. Obviously, people are upset at him about that. How do you feel about Terry Crews' approach? Because you got one aspect of Black people that think one way, another aspect that thinks another, and there doesn't seem to be any real middle ground. So where's your take on what Terry Crews had to say about that?
Well, I was once in his frame of mind, like briefly, but I was uninformed. The term Black on Black crime is, it's misused. It's a media tool to basically demonize us as a community. What about Black on Black crime? You're worried about the police. So crime is crime, to be honest. And there's no such thing as white on white crime, and white people commit crimes against each other all the time. So that Black on Black crime thing, I like to take that out the equation. As far as systemic versus, personal, as I stated about Chicago, it's a totally different thing. We live in a violent society. This country was founded on violence. It got its independence through uprising, through the, back in the day for the Tea Party and such. So for you to try to compare the two, it's not logical to me, and I don't agree with this statement.
Absolutely.
Right. Well, what do you think it's going to take? Because we always talk here on the platform about, that ownership aspect, but it seems like, rappers and actors, they stay like confined to a certain area, the liquor, the clothing, but you rarely ever see, them branching out and getting credit unions, banks, different things like that, where they can redistribute the wealth to their people. What is it going to take for us to do what Master P was saying? Because I listened to him and it was 100% on point, accurate. What is it going to take for Black people to really get power in this country? Because we see all the other people got power. We lack power.
Well, I think the activists and those in this moment, we're in a huge moment, man. This is the first time that this type of movement was felt worldwide. Like 16 other countries or 18 other countries protested during the George Floyd situation. So that's a worldwide global awakening. So I think this young generation going forward, they're teaching each other cooperative marketing. They're learning how to, work the soil, and be organic. And so I think the next generation is really, I'm hopeful for how it's going, because we're forced to now definitely deal with our circumstances head on, because it's no alternative. They've shown us through redlining and Jim Crow and everything that they're not trying to give Black people a fair shake. So it's up for us to make it better for us. And I think it's head in that direction. Just because we have these platforms and this ability to intermingle and link online even is I think it's very helpful to where we headed.
Absolutely. And you're one of them comedians that obviously you may not be in the mainstream and known in every living room in today's age, but people who really know comedy, you're respected, you're well known, and you're well known for giving other comics opportunities, bringing them on, getting them on shows, booking them and giving them opportunity where it wasn't usually given. Can you give us a little history on how you began to get into comedy, and then once you realized you had your foot in the door, the responsibility you had to help others get in the game as well?
Man, it seemed like it's just a natural thing to do. Once you find a way to hit a lick, you're supposed to share that with your people, especially if it's not detrimental to you. So when I got to Comic View, it was like really the first big break for me. And I found out the process of what it took for comedians to get on Comic View. So by me having a streamlined direct contact, I united all the comedians in Chicago and said, instead of doing what I did, which was send in my individual tape and hope they pick it, let's send them a Chicago tape. Then they can pick. That way they don't have to go through a whole bunch of tapes. So this is back in the 90s. And they picked 20, 22 people, 24 people. So it was gratifying to be able to call a guy and say, look, I just got the call, man. BET, they're going to hook you up. Marlon Mitchell, Marcus Combs, D. Ray Davis. These are people that, Lil Rel, all these cats. Well, Lil Rel maybe came around behind D. Ray. But cats that got that opportunity, and it was just a good feeling. So when it became apparent that in order to make money in this business, you have to be an entrepreneur and a promoter as well, unless you're a household name, as you stated, I started promoting shows. And then a lot of people say you need to leave Chicago, go to LA or New York to make it. But I felt like they've had it backwards, because Chicago is a market that people also want to come to. Mm-hmm. So I took advantage of that by bringing artists in. And I learned that, if I book a name act, and I'm not a known name person myself, but I host my own show and I'm the promoter, then I'm going to absorb some of their fan base. So that worked in my favor. And I spread that philosophy. And I just felt like, as a promoter, I need comics that have notable names. So it was in my benefit to make them all popping, so that when they do my shows, they sell tickets. So it all was, it just was organic, and it worked.
Who were some of your influences that you looked up to before you got in the game?
Before the game, of course, it's two people. That's Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy. If anybody don't mention Richard Pryor and Eddie Murphy when they talk about doing Black comedy, then they're probably lying, or they're not doing it well, because those are the two that really made it happen. Red Fox is also a pioneer. I also like Franklin Ajay. These are people that I looked up to before I got into the industry. Once I started, doing my thing, my mentor was George Wilborn here in Chicago. He was the house MC of the preeminent comedy club in America for Blacks called All Jokes Aside here in Chicago. And so everybody came through there: Chappelle, Rock, Steve Harvey, All Four Kings, people like Monique when she was on the rise, all of them. This was the spot. Michael Collier. These are people that I became, cool with and got influence from. So George Wilborn, Bernie Mac were my two people in Chicago that really steered me through this game. And the owner of All Jokes Aside, I always have to mention him, Raymond Lambert.
Dope. Now you talk about Chicago comics. I mean, how did y'all like you D-Ray, you, Bernie, my man Corey Holcomb, and I'm missing a million of them.
Oh yeah, Dion Cole, Lil Rel. Let's just keep going. T. Murphy's out here doing it. Just Niche, Adele Given, Cheryl Underwood, Melanie Camacho, Rodney Perry, B. Cole. I'm not done. Hannibal Buress, Wanda, what's her name? Marsha Warfield from Night Court. I'm talking about. Actually, Red Fox was born in St. Louis, but he learned to be a comic in Chicago. He was from Chicago as far as that goes. Richard Pryor up the street in Peoria. So Illinois and Chicago has a rich history. Then we have, on the mainstream side, Second City is here. So a lot of people flow through there to go to Saturday Night Live. Chris Red on Saturday Night Live, Chicago. So the Chicago comedy circuit, man, we kind of bred comics. I think Chicago, DC, and probably Atlanta, other than the two coasts, are the, places where you have an epicenter of comics and you have a circuit where you challenge each other. But Chicago, man, I'm just very proud of this circuit and the people and how we've mentored each other coming up generation after generation. And this is a hot spot. If you want, I put our squad up against anybody.
Yeah, especially when you talk about the people from the past, present, and future. You definitely got a crazy lineup. Talk about the competition though. In Chicago, grinding. You on the set. You got your other comedians right there with you. Was it like a friendly competition? Let's build each other up, or was there some jealousy involved throughout the journey?
No, I would say any type of envy that started early in the game was stifled. One of the things I think that even the playing field was the fact that everybody got Comic View that year. You know what I'm saying? So when we all got Comic View, we all got the same credit. Now let's go and see who's gonna do something with it, right? But at the crib, it was like, on any given night, you could have George Wilborn, Tony Schofield, Kenny Howe. These are all Def Comedy Jam comics. Sonya D. These people that you might not know, Dion Cole, D-Ray, that. And so when we go up, who next? You're going to step up. I see what you did. All right, but it wasn't like, oh, I got to do better than this dude. It's like, all right, the room is hot. Let me see if I can ride that wave. And that was our camaraderie. And so when we all went to Comic View those couple of seasons together as a mob, 26 comics all from the city. So one of the seasons, Ricky Smiley was hosted. And he was like, this next comic, from Chicago. And he had to say it like, it got apparent that it was like everybody was there from Chicago. About, like I said, 26 comics in the season when they probably only taped 59 or something like that. So 56 or something like that. So we dominated that. This circuit, man, I'm very proud of it. And that's why I've been here all my life and I haven't moved, because I know it's vibrant here.
Comic View versus Def Comedy Jam. I loved them both growing up, but obviously you went to Def Comedy Jam to hear some curses. You was hearing the F-bombs and shits and all that, and that made you laugh. And then you got Comic View where you had to kind of make it tasteful for cable television. Was that a struggle for you guys to kind of switch up your repertoire from a Def Comedy Jam to a Comic View? How did that work?
Well, to be honest, it was kind of, those are two different eras, so to speak, because when Def Jam was at its height, there was no Comic View. When Comic View came along, Def Jam was kind of on a decline after Martin left, but it was a different vibe and it was a different locale. The thing about Def Jam, it was filmed, the original one, when it was in New York, when that was the Def Jam. When they moved it out to the West Coast, it kind of, in my opinion, got kind of watered down. They didn't have that stabilizing force as a host. They were rotating hosts. So it had kind of lost its luster. But Comic View, the beauty of Comic View, not only did you get to do it and you don't have to be clean, and which will give you more availability to people to book you, because if you was just known as a Def Jam comic, that became a stigma after a while. But it also had reruns, so if you was a Def Jam comic, if you didn't hit on your episode and blow up like the Eddie Griffins and the Chris Tuckers, who had those groundbreaking sets, so you remember them from that day, they became a household name, then your Def Jam episode kind of faded away. You did Comic View, it was on 6 nights a week, and like I say, they only recorded so many episodes, so they reran the shit out of Comic View.
I remember you and Don DC Curry putting in work, man, cracking me up. Salute to you.
Yeah, DC actually hosted my the year I won my special. DC Curry was the host, also from Chicago.
Damn, that's crazy. I didn't know that.
Yep.
You got any cool heckler stories for us, man? Tony Rock came on last week and gave us a crazy story. You got any stories you can remember that you want to share with the audience?
Yeah, I got the craziest heckler story of all time, because it wasn't a heckle. It was a fight. So this club I used to do, man, called TNT Comedy, which is where I met my wife, who is right over there. Hey, baby, you ain't got to leave. Anyway, it was right off the border of Indiana and Illinois. So it's a south suburb of Chicago, but Gary, Indiana was maybe 30 minutes away or less, actually. So the Gary crowd always been a rough crowd. And so one night I'm hosting. It's the hottest night, man. It's a Sunday, it's bananas. And, you know, people used to pay extra to get to the front of the line so they could get in and pay, you know, because it was just, that was it. And so the crowd hype, you know, and I'm the host. It's my joint, you know, and I'm coming up to the stage. They bring me up like our regular routine. And right as I grab the mic, take it off the stand, this dude just started walking toward me, right? And I ain't saying nothing. You know, I'm just like, what up, everybody? And I see, you know, you could, you know, if you're on your square, you see in my eyes that, you know, he wasn't right. So I'm like, dude, what you about to do? You know, he's like, just coming at me. I'm like, man, if you come up here, you know, I'm gonna hit you with this mic. And he just rushed me, dog. So it was crazy. So when he rushed, I kind of gave him the matador, right? And caught him in the headlock and rotated him. And we fell down these 3 little stairs on the steps and went through the drywall. So it's a hole in the drywall. I'm tussling with this dude. Comedian Jeff B, one of my brothers, ran up and 2 security guys. And we had it on video. I could see them like kicking him and all types of shit. This is crazy, man. For no reason, unprovoked. I don't know to this day who this dude was. So they get him out and they hug. They got him by all fours, right? You know, I had some big old swole bouncers too. They took him right up out of there. And then he was on the way out. He was like, I dropped my chain. Somebody find my chain. That's a $5,000 chain. Now, why would you say that? That chain vanished quick, right? So after they hauled him out, I get up and I got on all black, I remember, but I got drywall all on my shoulder. I brushed off both my shoulders. And I said, all right, y'all ready to start this show? And the crowd went bananas, man. Nobody got a better heckler story than that because he didn't even say that. He just rushed me.
Damn, man. Now I was reminiscing back on I used to like watching old roasting sessions. And one of my favorite was Jamie Foxx tearing Doug Williams' ass apart. Salute to Doug Williams, salute to Jamie Foxx. Did you ever find yourself in a situation where you had to roast another comic and they looked at you like, yo, dog, won't you ever do that again?
No, it wouldn't be another don't do that again. But I used to host open mic and see in Chicago, like I said, if you wouldn't bring it, you know, we ain't got time for this. You know, we got killers over here that can come up here and do their thing, but I'm gonna give you the 5 minutes, so don't come up here on some BS. And I'm gonna ask you. So if you come up here and you whack, you know, we have fun with, you know, New Jacks or people that were bomb. Sometimes it just be one thing that they did that was, you know, off key on their whole set, and I just would play on it, and then we just, you know, do it repetitiously, and nobody really say nothing until years later. Like this comedian, her name is Dawn B, and she said, I hate you and I love you because you made me strong, but you always used to give me so much hell. I'm like, but you used to bomb. And I love her. Matter of fact, I'm doing her show Sunday. She's doing an outdoor driving show, Dawn B. Don't, no diss to her now. But I'm like, you know, it made you better. So she became synonymous with this group of guys that came every week to the show. And whenever I say, okay, come to the stage, we got a female, they would all think it was Dawn B. They all go, oh! So she was synonymous with a bombing female. But sometimes it wouldn't be her, you know, but she would go up there too and do a thing. But Dawn B is one person of all the comedians who came back and said that you rode me too hard, but I appreciate it.
Damn. Now, you ever find yourself in a situation where you see a comic, you scattered a comic, and you may not have given him or her a chance, and now you look back today and like, damn, they done blew up. I should have knew back then that they were the shit that they were now.
That don't fit. I gave everybody a chance. I don't care. It might be a guy. It was a guy who had said he had just got out of jail and said he was making people laugh up on the deck. He wanted to try it. He said, I always wanted to try it, man, but I've been locked up the last 3-4 years, blah, blah, blah. He was from Iowa, and I let him go up, and he was decent. You know, he was actually funny. So I feel like everybody deserves a shot because the hardest part of this thing to begin is to go in front of people and try to make Black people especially, but any people laugh. That's one of man's biggest fear, public speaking. As public speaking, waiting on approval of your speech, which is what comedy is. You know, when you drop something out there, you need that reaction back. That's a hard thing to get yourself motivated to do. And when it's going bad, I feel sorry for people. But if it's bad and it's funny where, you know, you can have fun with it, I still ride it. But I always gave everybody a shot. There are some people that maybe didn't get as many opportunities, like to be booked by me, a paid gig, that ended up doing that thing. I know Grady There's a comedian from Chicago, and I think he feels like I slighted him in some kind of way. And not in a negative sense, because I heard him say on one of the casts, he's like, yeah, you never know who's gonna blow up, and he a funny dude, and he doing this thing. I think he got a movie out called something about Joe, I think it's called. But that was one guy who I think might have had that feeling. But I'm sure he did my shows. I gave everybody a shot, so I think everybody deserves a shot if you have enough courage to try this.
Stop.
Who are your top female comedians right now that you rock out with in the game?
Some more. I'm always going to be the first answer if you ask me about ladies in comedy, because she is definitely a road comic. She's proven she's tour worthy. She goes out every year. She takes her own tour. She either hosts or headlines and brings other hitters with her, but she's still the queen of that show. So some more, I rock with her 100%. I think Wanda Sykes is brilliant when it comes to the funny. On the rise, we got two of them here that are really blazing their trail, which is Just Niche and Corey Bell, two funny ladies. Just Hilarious is doing her thing. Tiffany Haddish is my friend and is funny. Lunell is a fool.
Mm-hmm.
Cheryl Underwood, when she go hard, you can't top her. Ellen DeGeneres is hilarious to me.
You said you didn't mention Monique.
Monique is funny too. I got to get to I could do the whole Queens of comedy. Then, Monique, Adele Gibbons, my sister.
Right.
I'll just give you. I could go down the list. Miss Laura. They was all Queens of comedy. But as far as that I'm seeing out here that's doing it, that's still on the road constantly, some more is number one on that list for me.
Dope. Do you think that they get the proper credit they deserve? You see Monique going through her legal battle with Netflix right now over compensation. I see a lot of comics in solidarity of her, both men and female. How do you feel about that?
I 100% feel like women deserve equal or even greater compensation for what they do, because if anybody follows any type of comedy scenario, if you go to a comedy club or a comedy concert, look in the audience and see who's out there. It's the women that are supporting this industry. When I do my shows, you never see 5 guys say, man, we finna look up and go to the comedy club, but it'll be 10 girls, at a table celebrating their girl birthday or a bachelorette, doing their thing, or just 2 of them, you know what I'm saying? Or one that don't have nobody else, you know what I'm saying? I've had many individual females just sit at the front of the show and just come laugh because she don't have a date, but she came out and do a thing. So they definitely should get compensated, because their voices are important, especially if the demographic is predominantly women, especially in our culture. Black women, that's who support comedy. So I think Monique is justified in asking for more money. I don't think she, and it's not for me to say, because you put your own price and you know what you're worth to yourself. But Amy Schumer at the time was, selling out arenas. So for her to compare what they was paying her, that don't make sense. That'd be like me saying, well, I tell as many jokes as Dave Chappelle. Why I ain't get 20 million for my special? Because you ain't motherfucking Dave Chappelle.
But if you felt as though you were funnier than Dave Chappelle, would you have a right to say it?
Not if I couldn't sell the tickets.
Fair.
Numbers. Yeah.
If you can't sell the tickets, if you can't get the views, and I'm not saying Monique couldn't,
right.
But if one person got 20 million followers versus somebody with 500,000, that's how the money is compensatory, I believe.
It's fair. I know I've heard you on interviews say you ain't gonna bring it up anymore, so I'll be respectful and not bring up the incident in particular. But I wanted to know, both of you being from Chicago, have you and Corey Holcomb pieced everything up?
100%, and it happened organically. Well, actually, he was performing at the Savoy, and I just happened to be in the audience, and he just happened to go up. And Chris Spencer was hosting. He's like, man, I'm about to bring Corey up. I'm like, yeah, cool. So I come out the club, and he had just finished, and he saw me, and he's like, man, let me holler at you, dog, and just, like, take my number, let's chop it up. So then, we didn't really follow up on that, but then what did it was we were both, along with a lot of us, at John Witherspoon's memorial. And so at that memorial, even D.C. Curry was like, man, you need to squash that bull, blah, blah, blah. But Corey came up to me and said, man, from man to man, if I, crossed the line with you somehow, if I offended you, blah, 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 as a man, I'm going to say, I apologize, let's squash that life too short. And we did a video, and that video is on, it was on my Facebook or somewhere, Instagram, but we chopped it up, So, I mean, it ain't like, it never happened, but we good.
That's
So,
good.
Yeah, so we've worked together since then. Matter of fact, we had a show for All-Star Weekend here in Chicago. So when people ask me who's funny from Chicago, I will mention Corey Holcomb, because he's one of the, and I forgot to do it just now, but I did it in an early interview today, because he's a brilliant comic as well. In his lane, he does what he does. So Shouts out to Chicago. I'm Team Chi-Town, Chicago, be everywhere.
Dope.
Yeah. How do you feel about joke thieves? We had a number of comedians. And they all had a lot of different things to say about it. I want to get your opinion on people reusing comedians' jokes.
First of all, I don't condone it, of course. But, you know, a lot of times it's a person might be influenced by another comedian, or it might be a common premise, and you can't really claim a common premise if you're talking about, you know, I had an argument with my wife. Well, he had an argument with his wife, and it might not be the same thing. Now, if somebody take your bit and do it verbatim, I've had some of my jokes used in verbatim. I just say, you know, okay, run with that, because I'm going to do more jokes, because you shouldn't be stuck on your current material. Like right now, and D-Ray said this today on his live from, well, I guess it was from yesterday, being in Arlington Improv. You shouldn't even be doing your old jokes right now. If you come out of this pandemic and this quarantine and you've been locked down and ain't been on the mic in 4 months, and you come right back out where you left off with them same jokes, then you're not really respecting the craft. So you shouldn't really be worried about who stole the joke. You should give them those jokes, because at some point you could retire a joke. But if a person consciously steals somebody's material, then you bogus, you know. But it happens, and sometimes it happens under the radar. It might be a person that is doing something regionally, you know, and that guy's the bomb in that region, but he don't get out of that area, and the headliner come through and snatch that, and it ended up on the Netflix special. And this guy don't have no claim to it because he hasn't done it on a notable scale. So it used to be the law was the first one to take a joke to TV, that's your joke. So if you put it on Comic View, ain't nobody gonna do it because it made it to Comic View. Now I don't know what the honor code is. Social media is so prevalent that people are definitely looking to create content whatever way they can. So it might be taking somebody else's premise or taking somebody's joke and making a skit out of it. Tyler Perry did a lot of that. In his earlier projects, we heard a lot of our stuff, you know, incorporated in the Tyler Perry movie. And I'm not saying he specifically did. He might have had writers who did what they did, but that definitely took place. But like Richard Pryor said, once you tell a joke, it's no longer yours anyway.
That's interesting. That's definitely interesting. Let's switch and transition to hip hop a little bit. Who Damon Williams listening to? Who's he having his on his Apple Music or his Tidal or things like that? Who you listening to?
Man, you know, I'm old head with it. But I'm for real. Like I'm really just coming into you know, what J. Cole is on the current side is dope. JID. I mean, I mess with my stuff is stuff like Talib Kweli and Common, you know, Kanye, a lot of Biggie.
Chicago to a T.
No, a lot of Biggie, man. But you know, Jay Electronica, the one he just dropped with Jay-Z, is dope to me. And you know, I listen to everything that's out there though, because I'm constantly trying to keep my ear to it. But if I get 3 songs in, or even 3 verses in, and everybody getting killed, and you know, and they get flexing their diamonds, and they taking the pills, and they selling the coochie, because you know, it was one song. This chick was like, she's like, my nigga ain't shit, and I ain't either. And I was like, you know, where are we going with this?
Yeah.
So I try. You know, you want to be up, because like I said, I'm the OG. So I don't want to be lost to it, but it's a lot of stuff out here that I just can't sit through. You know, it is not working with my vibe.
Did you catch Kanye West's thing yesterday, his little rant, by any chance?
let's before we laugh, let's just pray for Kanye West, man, because it's obviously a serious issue with that brother.
Yeah.
Man. You know, and it's diagnosed. It's got to be, you know, I've heard bipolar, things of that nature, and that's not even a bipolar episode. It's over the top. But he's a genius. And see, everybody knows that every genius that you can think of has a darker side or a quirky side. And it just so happened that 2 of them from Chicago got the worst. You know, we got Kanye with the cuckoo and R. Kelly with the bullshit, you know, so, but they both geniuses, man. So, I mean, we're going to pray for Kanye. We're not going to vote, but I hope he do a convention, because I know that it's going to be lit. The Kanye convention gonna be outdoors. They're gonna have on them little regular clothes. It's gonna be gospel, hip hop, barbecue. You know.
Now, speaking of the R. Kelly thing, though, we knew a few people from Chicago, and it seemed like the consensus was that a lot of people already knew what was going down. You being from Chicago, did people around you know what was going down? Was it like word on the street before it hit the fan?
Not specifically around me, but I know he was always on something. Like there was times when you would come to the club. And it's one particular club, the Cotton Club, and the DJ booth was upstairs, and it was this dark stairwell, but it was a plush spot, and the DJ booth had blacked out windows, And if you was, if you was cool, if you was somebody in town, you come in, you go up, chop it up with the DJ, they give you your shout out, blah, blah, blah. So I used to always go up there and kick it with the DJs. So one time I got there and two of his boys was on the door, and it was like, you can't go up there right now, Rob, he on one right now. So his boys knew what he did, you know what I'm saying? Now that was a 21 and older club. So whoever he was on one with either was old enough or had an ID, but I knew you had to be on some freak thing. If you can't make it, you can't wait till I knew he's a freak. I'll put it that way. You can't just take it, to the crib. No, Rob got one on the stairs right now, So it's a bogus scenario, man, and I'm making light of it. But I've heard direct stories of some of the, just the environment of the house, which the house that all of these things took place is a bike ride away from me. I usually ride my bike over to that community. I'm on the other side of the tracks of it, but I got a show called Laugh Tonight with Damon Williams on Urban Flicks. If it pop off, I might move over across the tracks on Rob's side because he don't live there no more.
We had our man Faison Love on maybe last week or a couple of weeks ago, and he was talking about R. Kelly a little bit. And he said there's no way in hell R. Kelly was doing what they said he was doing out in Chicago because Chicago people would not allow that. He'd be gone already. What do you think about that?
Faison is not from Chicago, so he can't speak on what Chicago would do. I put it that way for sure. It wasn't like it was blatant. Like we didn't see the bro walking around. Like you see Rob at the club, but you didn't see, who he had. So he had it at the house. How he was doing it, it was low key. So it wasn't like we condoned it or looked the other way because it was Robert Kelly. When he came out, he had his squad, and it was grown cats, and it was VIP, and it was 21 and older. So, that's all my personal experience with. And our birthdays are like day apart. So we've had situations where, it might be his birthday party or it might be a birthday event I had, but I never witnessed him with underage girls personally.
Did you know him at all? No?
Yeah, definitely.
Okay. Dope.
Definitely. Well, we appreciate your time. I don't got too many more questions for you, but I definitely want to ask you a couple more. Your shirt, say their names.
Yes, sir.
Speak on that, brother.
The police brutality issue, man, like I said, my son had me already woke to this whole scenario of the defund movement, which is, it's not getting rid of the police and not having nobody to call when 911 is necessary. It's about allocating the funds that's being spent. Because let's give you, for instance, in Chicago, over the 4th of July, we said, okay, since we're having this violence spike, we're going to add 1,200 cops and put them on the corners of the neighborhoods and the hot spots, and we're going to shut down the violence. And still 80 people got shot. So policing is not the answer. And police brutality, a militarized police force, over exuberant budget with pensions that are pending, versus the academies that they could be creating, vocational academies here in Chicago. I'm just going to start with my city from that standpoint. If you have a happy and working population, then you have less crime. It's not a coincidence that the crime and violence is in areas where people have poverty. Otherwise, police in the suburbs don't have to have the same type of reaction to their citizens that they do to us. So it's a violent system that creates the violence. I believe that seriously, if they defund the police department, here in Chicago, they closed 50 schools in 1 year. 50 schools, but they're spending millions of dollars, the largest school closure in any metropolitan city. But they're spending money to build a new police academy to train more police officers. And, they already basically statistically look at young boys by 3rd grade as how many prison cells they're going to need based on the population of 3rd grade. So it's already set up for us being failures. I think if they reallocate these resources, not just in policing, but in overall society, then we can eliminate or alleviate some of the crime and some of the poverty and violence that's taking place in all the major cities.
Yeah, I 100% agree with you. A lot of people try to use a scare tactic when they say, oh, defund the police. But it's like you said, if people was doing better, we wouldn't need them as much as we did. You know what I mean? In these suburban neighborhoods, the police ain't really going in like they are in the middle, in the city of Chicago. And I think that's a dope concept y'all got going there, though, man. Definitely.
Yeah. And it's not just, it's worldwide. It caught on, man. George Floyd's unfortunate demise really sparked a movement that's never been seen because of the fact that we have, social media and be able to interact, and we can see and simultaneously as a movement around the world make these things happen. So it's a vital time to be alive. We should also recognize that John Lewis just passed and, give respect to that whole era and generation of what their struggle was like. So I use it, for instance, in my material, but it's not a joke. I went out on march because, like I said, my son was assaulted by the police. And so I have a Black Son march, and they told us we were going to march a certain amount of miles. And we're going to go and do this. This will be our start point, our end point. And we got there, man, and nobody said how we was getting back. So when they tell you, it's a 4-mile march, that's an 8-mile march because you got to march back. So imagine in the civil rights, they're going to go from Selma to Montgomery, and they ain't even had Nikes. They had like Chuck Taylors and kitten heels.
Right.
So much respect to our predecessors in the struggle, man. And now let's just, continue this fight. And I think that the young people have to be supported because they are the catalyst of this movement. And I think we as a generation who actually benefited directly at my age from the 60s movement needs to support them and subsidize it as well.
Absolutely. Well said, man. We got the comic OG Damon Williams in the building of the podcast for a great 40-minute interview, man. Thank you very much for your time. Tell the people, let the people know your social media handles, where they can find you and any upcoming projects you may have available for the people.
All right, let me do that right now. First of all, Damon Williams Comedy is my website. You can get all my social media handles. Damon Williams Comedy is basically my social media. There's a new show, and it's the most current stand-up that you'll see filmed in a live studio because we did it right before COVID hit, and it's called Laugh Tonight with Damon Williams. 24 comedians with a 10 to 15-minute set plus a sit-down interview. I interview them each individually. And that's on Urban Flix TV. Urban Flix is available free if you got Apple TV, you can find it. Shouts out, I just wanted to do this because he just found it himself. Tom Joyner, man, he just called me right before you all got on and said he just watched the series. And that's my OG right there. But Urban Flix, urbanflixtv.com. Grab the app. It's a 7-day free trial if you want to subscribe, but it's a Black-owned network. So support that. It's only $4.99 a month, $50 for the whole year, and there's a lot of original content. Ray J got a series on there. It's a bunch of movies and series. I can't even go down the line, but some great content on there. And that's what I'm doing. So the clubs are trying to reopen, but we kind of, leery about that. Here in Chicago, I'm doing riddles, but we have a 50-person capacity. So, and it's socially distanced and spaced and masks are required until they roll back the phases here, which might happen anytime. But right now we're open. So that's what I'm doing, man. I'm staying home. I'm staying off the road. I'm going to run this home club like I did back in the day. And I'm going to be online with people like yourselves. I appreciate y'all inviting me on and giving me this platform and this amount of time to speak freely and keep doing what you're doing. And anything we can do from this end, we'll be glad to do it. Support Chi-Town style.
Salute, brother. We definitely appreciate you. If you ever find yourself in the South Jersey area, Atlantic City, around there, we own our own studio not too far from there. We'd love to have you to come in studio, come vibe with us, come rock with us and fellowship some more, man.
Hey, I'm coming, man. Let me tell you, because me and my wife, we've been kind of debating, but I'm thinking about getting an RV, man, and just hit the road like that so I don't have to go through the airport. So maybe I just route my way through that. But when I do, I'll let y'all know. I'm going to do some outdoor pop-ups. We're going to put out the basket and do some stand-up right off the side of the RV and see what it do.
That'd be dope.
That'd be fire, dog.
It really would, man. I'm telling you, I'm leaning toward it because I don't know if I probably cursed a couple times, but I ain't doing shit else. I might as well just get on out here, So thank y'all, man. I appreciate it.
No, we appreciate you, brother. Thank you. OG Damon Williams in the building of the podcast. Salute, brother.
My man. Respect.
All right, brother. Be safe, man.
Yeah.
All right.
Y'all too, man. Thank you.
Thank you.
Yep.
Appreciate that, brother Damon Williams, man. Them Chicago dudes be going in, man.
They thorough motherfuckers, man.
Yeah.
We appreciate them. We got a couple of them on the podcast, man. It seemed like the Midwest, man, they fuck with the podcast, and we fuck with them back, man.
Yeah.
Salute.
Midwest to Southwest.
You know what I'm saying?
What's up with y'all East Coast motherfuckers?
We right where we from, motherfuckers, but it's all good. Y'all go ahead and hit that 5-star rating if you enjoyed what you just heard from our man Damon Williams, man. And also, you already know, hit that like button, the subscribe button, whatever platforms you may be watching this on.
Yeah.
We do appreciate it, man. Well, if that's it, hey, we're about to get out of here, man. It's the Sandman Viral Hip Hop News. Oh, God, Hip Hop News Uncensored. Together, we are the Hip Hop Uncensored Podcast. Over and out.
Peace.